This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Watch the greenbacks tumble.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial is set correctly to USAPrepares.com. Broadcasting 2 hours from high atop the Missouri Ozark Mountains. There's a link to your instructors on the website, USAPrepares.com. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Aaron is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota. John Ragan's with us from Studio D in Dallas. Welcome, John Ragan.
Good morning, Vincent.
Hey, John, I got to tell you, I have been watching in the evenings, late when it's dark, and I can't safely, be working on fencing and cows and the farm. I just don't. One thing that we don't do here at the farm, unless it's absolutely an emergency, a real serious emergency, we don't operate equipment at night because that's when you run over animals and that's when people get hurt and accidents happen, mistakes happen, and so I've been watching with the family I would say it's a documentary on Netflix, and I don't have a subscription to Netflix, but I've been lent the use of one by a family member, and the documentary is called House of Cards. It's about politics. Now, they would probably say it's a fictional story. But to me, it's a documentary. Just like Eddie Murphy was in a movie called Distinguished Gentleman, and I used to say to my dad when he was alive, "Dad, there's a really great documentary about how our government works. It's called Distinguished Gentleman." and I really believe that this series called House of Cards, and I was just talking with Aaron about it. He has seen the entire thing. I have only seen up to episode 11. And there's way too much sex in it for me. There's way too much profanity in it for me. But, I know some politicians. I know a guy who is really high up, the equivalent of the main character in House of Cards in the Missouri government. And the language, the profanity, I've seen it over and over and over again in the government. So I wrote down a few words that came to mind when I was watching House of Cards, and I suggest that if you're up for the graphic nature of this, and you want to see why you should run for office, all of you, and take back America, you will see some of the things that I'm going to describe with just a list of a few words. Corruption, embezzlement, sex trafficking, drug trafficking, prostitution, racketeering, personal gain, individual greed, lying, cheating, bribing, threatening, morality, impurity, dishonesty, subversion, inducement, degradation, societal decay, rottenness, drug abuse, debasement, illegal drug trafficking, murder, cover-up, scams, charity scams, and the list could go on for days. And what I would consider holding a gun to each other's heads. So imagine a group of Congress critters, their aides, and people who are in lobbying. And each one of them is holding a gun at somebody else's head. They're all in there. Husbands, wives, holding guns at each other's heads. Because everybody's got some details, pictures, stories, information that will land others in jail. They're all corrupt. And that's what we've got in Washington, D.C. And that's why government doesn't work. That's why when you send your guy and you go, yeah, my guy's really good, and I voted for him and I can't wait for him to get in office and he's going to clean up that mess and he's just the best. And then he gets to office and he goes 6 months later, you go, why'd you vote that way? I thought you were on our side. I've seen it. I've seen our guy in Washington. And I've heard stories from the Tea Party where the Tea Party is screaming at our Congress critter. And he says back, you don't understand. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Well, the only way that you can be under pressure is if someone's got pictures, or someone can bribe you, or someone can threaten you. And these guys trade favors. Like, I'll do a favor for you if you do one for me. If you vote for this, if you stand behind this, if you endorse this, I'll do you a favor later. Or if you don't do this, remember that gal that sat on your lap? Remember those pictures we took at that party? That's what comes out. That's what our Congress is like. And I really believe that this is a strong, strong image of what is wrong with our government. And seriously, if you're up for the sex in it, which I really don't like, and if you're up for the profanity, which I really don't like, and it bothers me, all that bothers me. But if you want to see what these guys are really like, the drunken tirades, the stupidity, the immorality, it'll make you want to run for office because you need to. So I'm assigning it as homework for those who choose to accept it. It's called House of Cards. And the logo is the words House of Cards, but the American flag is upside down because we're under siege. Netflix, the American Political System documentary, as I'm calling it. John Ragan, so what do we have on for today?
Well, today we're talking about spy tech and control.
Okay. And so that's the Financial State of the Union. And if you go to thefinancialstateoftheunion.com, click on the news tab, and you can follow along at home with us. Please continue.
It was really a challenge putting the news together this week. I've talked before about Evernote. It's a free program that I use to clip web pages so that anything that I find of interest, I'll clip it, and I end up with a few hundred web pages filed that way every week. I use the paid version because I have such a high volume, but at the end of the week, I take that and then put what I think would be good information for the show into a different folder. But when I went to bed Saturday night, I had 160 items in that folder. We typically get through maybe 6 to 8 in a normal 2 broadcast hours. And Sunday I was able to take that down to 20. And I'm hoping to lump some of these together so that we can actually get through these today. It's disturbing anyway, and I'm going to make a caveat here. The first section I have is called Hacking the Brain, and 2 of these, the ones I call Monkeying Around and Invasive Cat Scan, they are not extremely graphic photos, but they are disturbing photos. So I just want to make you aware of that before you click into it. They are from pretty much mainstream, I guess, cross between mainstream and mainstream alternative news sites. It's not just a random blog post. So under hacking the brain, I've got real-time probe, monkeying around, invasive CAT scan, real or fake, and I'm using a Men in Black, if you haven't seen that movie, reference. Look at the neuralizer while I put on my sunglasses. It's amazing some of the so-called science fiction that has become real life. And that's a rabbit hole we could really get down. But to relate to something I found out in the last couple of years, I think everybody's heard of H.G. Wells, who wrote a lot of science fiction. What you might not know, though, is H.G. Wells headed British intelligence during World War I. So this black ops connection to technology goes back a long, long way. It's not just our time. So what we're seeing with hacking the brain, we've got researchers that have used EEG electrodes and been able to see what people are thinking about. This is a relatively low-level resolution type thing, but it's showing how scientists in this one experiment can see what people are thinking about and how good their memory is. More disturbing is they've done experiments with a monkey where they've electronically stimulated parts of the brain and controlled its decision-making process. And if you look at the facial expression of the monkey, it looks like somebody's undergone shock treatment. The kitten skulls cracked open, had electrodes implanted, and did all kinds of research. And we'll talk about the other two when we get back from the break.
John Ragan's with us, the Financial State of the Union.com. And the pictures are disturbing. There's no question about it. I don't really want to look at them on the screen. Cat with his skull. John Ragan's with us, and we're talking about spy technology. We're talking about, well, experimentation on animals. And we're talking about these cats who have had their skulls drilled open, electrodes inserted into their brains. And I'm pretty sure we're going to be talking about the torture and the extreme torture that these animals have gone through during the research, we'll call that in quotes, that has been done on them. And I'd like to just take a few seconds and draw the analogy. Have you seen those stories on the news about some woman who's rescued a bunch of cats and left them in their house, and then the police raid that house because of the abuse of those cats, because there was cat feces and cat urine in the house? So someone who rescues animals and does that gets raided by the police. But if you want to drill holes in a cat's skull, and you want to insert electrodes in the brain, and you want to deprive them of sunlight, and you want to torture them, that's research. We've lost our way. John Ragan?
And that's research going on at 9 UK universities, including Cambridge. The monkey experiment was done by a team from the Catholic University out of Belgium, Massachusetts General Hospital, and Harvard Medical School. So this is not, some podunk university or small country doing some outlandish things. This is, what we would consider mainstream Western world, the UK and the United States, and it's just a continuation of eugenics, which most people think about as the Nazis during World War II, but it actually went on over 100 years ago here in the United States. That's where the Nazis got the ideas from.
Mm-hmm.
The fourth post talks about manipulating memory, and this one talks about using sound to do that. And this includes a couple of references, one to a research paper from MIT and an article from the Journal of Neuroscience. So this is not just, idle speculation there. And then the fifth one is another article from the Daily Mail, how a flash of light can delete bad memories, much as we saw in the movie Men in Black. So what we are seeing here is the manipulation of memories and emotions using electricity, sound, and light. And it is, you put it all together, to me it paints a disgusting picture, and this is, being done on animals right now, that you can bet that they want to do this with humans to control the population and make you do what you want. And if you don't think the right way, you may be re-educated in a way that you're not expected.
Mm-hmm. Well, John, it's frightening. It's frightening that we're even thinking about these things. It's frightening that our government is funding these things through research grants. And it's being encouraged. It's being encouraged by our government. And you talked about the Nazis with Operation Paperclip. I'm sure our class remembers that what the Nazis did was what we did with the Nazis after the close of World War II. We rounded up their best scientists, and we brought them over here. There was a dossier, or a series of dossiers, and it was paperclipped together. It's called Operation Paperclip. And we brought their best minds, their best experimenters. Von Braun, he was involved in heading up our rocket program so that we could launch rockets into space. We had to import that science from the Nazis right after World War II. John Ragan's with us, thefinancialstateoftheunion.com. If you're interested in his book, you can buy it. I've got a copy. A lot of our instructors have copies. It's brilliant. It is the quick read as to why we're in this mess and why the financial collapse is absolutely a certainty. We'll be right back. Class, there's a post on the website about a married couple. They say they were white supremacists. And they went into a pizza restaurant and they shot dead a couple police officers, Las Vegas police. Now, they said that this was kind of a response to what's happening by the police on us. And then these two, the husband and wife, killed another person, and then they killed themselves. And they say it's kind of like a suicide pact. Now, we said many, many, many weeks ago and months ago that this kind of thing would happen. Now, we're not encouraging it to happen. We absolutely are suggesting that the opposite happen, that we don't get involved in this kind of violence. But, it seems to me that this is just a natural progression. The more we, the people, are abused, the more people are going to respond in a like manner. And if you look at the post, you'll see these police, and you'll see the "Don't Tread on Me" flag, and you'll see a picture of the family, and then you'll see a picture of the police in brown and tan uniforms, the Las Vegas police, with their police cars. And then you see the military deployment of Las Vegas police and SWAT gear. And you'll see them with automatic weapons. And then you'll see the police with a whole bunch of police standing around. I mean, it looks like there's 20 of them at least. And then and as you continue down, you'll see the SWAT vehicle. And then you'll see two police officers hugging each other. And if you look at their belts, you'll see they've got guns and tasers and at least 3 extra magazines, high-capacity magazines, on their belts. And they have and body armor. And you've got to ask yourself, how did we get to the point where the police need, almost 80 rounds of ammunition on their body, and body armor, and tasers, and handcuffs, and two-way radios, and billy clubs, and that much gear? How have we gotten to the point where they think they need all that? And so this is an upsetting thing. It's escalating. I don't like it. I don't like it. But we thought it would happen, and we said it right here. Now, let me make this absolutely crystal clear. I am not advocating violence in any way, shape, or form by anyone. I'm advocating peace. And I think it's upon us to keep the peace. We, the people, need to keep the peace. So, back to you, John Ragan.
It will be interesting to see if government fingerprints are on this or not, because it's awfully convenient on the timing, and it just goes to show that, these racist conspiracy theorists need to be shut down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I talked to Mrs. Finelli about this, and her concern was that people might think that I'm, they could misconstrue what I'm saying, that, we might be on the side of people who are killing people. And we're not. We are not on the side of people who are killing people in any way, shape, or form, whether they be the police or whether they be we the people. So please continue.
Well, the next section gets more personal. I call it Your Body Belongs to the State. I've got 3 links there: predictive modeling, AIMD, which stands for Artificial Intelligence Medical Doctor, and Simband, the smartwatch. Predictive modeling is something that health organizations are doing to predict what type of situations you may get yourself into based on your current history. And it may be developing depression, it may be developing diabetes. It goes, the whole gamut of medicine. And you start combining this with other things. The artificial intelligence is now telling doctors what to do. You still have the doctors doing the initial diagnosis, seeing what the symptoms are. But when it comes to treatment, the computers are starting to say what you get. And then you overlay, this is the Samsung version of a health tracking wristband. Apple's coming out with their own version. And you also combine that with what we've talked about earlier, these mini RFID chips that will go into pharmaceuticals so that every pill has an individual ID on it. And they will know if you're taking your medicine, if you're taking somebody else's medicine. And when you look at what Obamacare is doing, where you don't have the freedom of healthcare anymore, you have their system. If they want to do a protocol that you disagree with, you don't have a choice. one of the things that is talked about quite a bit in mainstream now is cholesterol. Well, cholesterol is not the problem. In fact, when you get to the doctors that are a step ahead of the game, the cholesterol is actually saving your life. Typically what's happening inside your arteries is that they get stretched out, so the cholesterol ends up working as a patch. And a lot of what caused the problem to begin with is malnutrition, not having things like vitamin C and sulfur to let your body repair itself properly. And when you go in and do things like these statin drugs, these statins deplete CoQ10 out of your body, including your heart, which is needed for proper function. And, maybe we lower your cholesterol, but what happens if you get a heart attack because you're taking these drugs? And the option to opt out, the option for your doctor to give a different treatment is quickly going away, because there's going to be these standards of care approved by the insurance companies, and that is what the doctor has to follow. And if you don't do what you're supposed to, that's now the state's business, because it affects the national security of the state, because you're now affecting the economics. And of course, all of this is under the auspices of the IRS, which we know how impartial they are, because they have access to the health records just to make sure that you have, the proper insurance coverage, or you get your tax.
John, as I listen to this, every Monday we seem to be talking about the loss of more and more freedoms. The greater the control, the bureaucrats, or bureau rats, and people who we supposedly elected to represent our interests have failed us. And the more I think about this, the more I realize why. Who pays these Congress critters? Where does their money come from? Doesn't it come from the federal government? And isn't Washington, D.C. separate and apart from the 50 states of the United States of America? It's not part of us. So why would we expect that these critters would be representing our interests and not their own? I believe that they are protecting the interests of Washington, D.C., which are separate and apart from the interests of we the people. It all makes sense to me, as I think about it that way. So I've heard a really bright man, one of our senior class members at the meetup. He said, I don't get it. I'm paraphrasing. I don't get it. We send these people to Washington to represent us. They spend time in Washington. They don't spend time here, and they're not representing us. Why is that? Why is that? Well, they're being paid in Washington, and a lot of us believe that they've been selected by Washington. And if you watch this video, this documentary, House of Cards by Netflix, you will see that people aren't elected. They are selected. They are put in positions to run for office at the highest levels of Congress because they are easily manipulated. They are selected among those who will owe favors or who can get favors done, who are compromised in such a way that they can be easily manipulated. So what we're talking about is a gaggle of weak individuals, a phlegm of weak individuals, a pond scum, a disease of weak individuals who are easily manipulated by the system against the interests of we the people. Back to you.
And it's the picture that's coming up is what disturbs me. We already know that there is no way to avoid a financial collapse. I've shown that with the financial state.
which was engineered by them, not by us. We didn't do it, John. We, the people, did not do it. And I've got to say this before the break. You know, there are so many people who say, we caused it because, we the people caused it because we didn't take control. These guys are lying and cheating and stealing and operating in back rooms above the law. And that's how this happened. They did it in the dark of night against we the people. You know, John, I've got several screens in front of me here in Missouri, and I was watching the delay of the connection from me in Missouri to Minnesota at GCN. It's darn near close to a record. There's 1,000 milliseconds in a second, and we were at 1,870 milliseconds delay. And I swear, this happens. This kind of stuff happens whenever we talk about things that are important. And I had to disconnect and reconnect during this broadcast. You probably didn't even know it because I didn't say anything. And I did it at opportune times, at least 7 or 8 times in the last 50 minutes in order to keep the broadcast functioning. So, congratulations. He must be over the target. So right now the delay is 196 milliseconds. So that, that's roughly 0.2 of 1 second. That's something that we can, operate with. So I just find it, I love these challenges. The more challenges that are presented to us, the more I like it. So I just wanted everybody to know, especially those who are helping us with providing these challenges, that they don't faze us. I just think it's just one more thing to make life exciting. So, John, please continue.
Well, before the break, we're talking about how the financial collapse is coming. And there's really only 2 outcomes from there. The one I talk about in the book is where we end up with an EMP attack worldwide, taking down technology. And after today, I think you might agree with me that that's the happy path. Because if we end up with this technical industrial complex remaining in place, the resulting police state that you would live in is going to be nightmarish. Mm-hmm. And it makes a difference from a preparedness standpoint. Because if there's an EMP attack that takes down this technology, then you can live on a homestead and have a pretty good life. It'll be rougher compared to 21st century standards, but probably still better than even what your ancestors had because you'll have some leftover technology. However, if this technology is in place, you're not going to have the option of staying on your farm. The agenda's already out there to take you off of it. And the only way to not live in the police state would basically be to head to the hills and become a hunter-gatherer. And that lifestyle is really, really rough.
Yes.
So that's why I cover this, is to make you aware of what's going on, and then you can pray accordingly as to which future you'd like to see come about.
John, every once in a while, I get asked to change the direction and the content of USAPrepares.com, and the discussion kind of goes like this: Hey, Vinny, how about doing more on how to prepare and less on this way out of the box stuff that you guys talk about? And I always come back to the same thing. Preparedness is knowing what you need before you need it and having it before you need it. So if you don't understand the lies and the deceptions that are all around us, and you don't know how to decipher the truth from manufactured disinformation, you will not know how to prepare. So the reason that we teach these kinds of things, like how to think, is precisely so that when we go away, when we're forced out, when we're taken over at usaprepares.com and put out of business, that you'll be prepared to go ahead and survive. John Ragan, and I'll be right back, right after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. Everyone all set? Cocked, locked. Hour number 2 of usaprepares.com. John Ragan's with us. You know, we just heard at the top of the hour news that Senator John McCain, he was a POW. He ran for president. He wants to improve the VA. So why was John McCain not aware of the atrocities happening at the United States Veterans Administration? Veterans are dying waiting for medical care and medical attention. It's impossible that he didn't know about it. I guess it wasn't politically expedient or in his own personal best interest to help the veterans get medical attention. I have a friend, his name is Bob. And Bob is on borrowed time. He's waiting for surgery, necessary surgery, for an aneurysm. Now, Bob has made his medical records available to me. He's got them in a secure location where I can access them if I want to. And should Bob not get medical treatment because of the delay after delay after delay after obfuscation, after let's look, let's investigate, let's consider, let's reschedule, let's go see another, let's get another test, let's see what happens, let's think about it. It's been going on for a long, long time. If Bob dies before treatment, we're going to talk about who, what, when, where, why, and how regarding my friend Bob. Who delayed? Who obfuscated? Who confused? Who was in charge? Who's responsible? That's just one case. One case of neglect of the men and women who served in the United States military. Allegedly, to expand democracy around the world and to protect us from who knows what. And this democracy thing, when you hear these pundits on the air talking about it, we don't have a democracy. We have a representative republic. Hillary Clinton knows better when she uses that term. Tonight, there's a meetup at Ziggy's, Sunshine and Glenstone, 5:30. I'll be there. We're going to be talking about American Nationals, Part 2, who they are, what they are, why to consider being one, and the advantages and the disadvantages of being an American national. What do you lose? What do you gain? That's with Lynette Marie tonight. And we're going to talk about something that I was very interested in. We have a contractor who's in our class at Ziggy's, and he's in the construction trades. Specifically, he's an electrician. And he's going to tell us about building projects that are going on in the Ozark Mountains. Who's building? And is it commercial? Is it low end? Is it middle? Is it high end? Who's building? What are they building? And I want to know about the construction techniques. Are they designed for just a generation or two, or are they designed for the long term? And, during the break, I opened a case of John, can you tell what that is?
Yeah, you're just rubbing it in.
I have a case of ice cream sandwiches, freeze-dried. Freeze-dried guy sent them to me. He got the invitation to come to the cookout. We're having a little cookout here at the farm for our on-air instructors and for our friends at GCN. And on July 6th. So, it's hamburgers and tube steak and that kind of thing. And it's really just conversation. And Dr. Shealy's bringing his fireworks, and Dr. Howard Shane's going to be here. And the freeze-dry guy said, he called me and said, Vinny, I can't make it. It's 4,000 miles round trip. And he would love to come. He loves spending time at the farm. But he's got an obligation that his prior obligation. So he said, hey, I'd love to send some ice cream sandwiches. And I said, wow, that'd be really cool. Well, actually, it's pretty room temperature. So I have a case of ice cream sandwiches that we're going to have at the cookout here at the farm on July 6th. And so our instructors are invited. So if you didn't get your invitation and you're an on-air instructor, you're certainly invited to the farm. July 6th, we're celebrating Independence Day on Sunday, July 6th at the farm. Now, John, here, we talk about spy technology. Now, there's going to be a sign at the door, where everybody comes in, into the farmhouse. And it's going to say, no cell phones. No cell phones. Now, the reason for that, and I'm going to demonstrate this tonight at Ziggy's, I'm going to stop the meetup, and I'm going to answer what would appear to be a phone call. And I'm going to walk around the room, and I'm just going to pace, like a lot of people pace when they're on the phone. And there's a camera out the front of the cell phone, there's a camera out the back, and I'm just going to walk around just slowly, and I'm going to do a 360-degree rotation right there. And then I'm going to put the cell phone away. I'm going to say, oh, you know what could have just happened? And I'm going to explain how the entire room could have been photographed without my knowledge, without anyone's knowledge, and how the cell phones at Ziggy's can be turned on remotely for audio and video, wherever they are, remotely. And those who are interested in what we're up to can, and what I say and what others say, can listen and record. So we're not going to have cell phones here at the farm permitted to be on. They can leave them in the cars. Our guests can leave them in the cars, but they can't come in the house with them. And they can't walk around the property with them. What do you think about that, John?
Well, it's good as far as it goes. You just need some anti-drone technology, too. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I believe that it's illegal to transmit a jamming frequency, even on my farm, that would prevent the transmission of cell phone signals out of cell phones on my farm. I believe that's illegal. What do you think?
I know it is in public areas.
Yeah.
If you've got a large enough private area, I'm not sure, because I know that there are movie theaters out there that do jam cell phones.
Oh, wow. Okay, I thought they would come after us with the interstate commerce, interruption. I thought they would come after us for that. Well, I love it. So I'm going to look into that. That's something I would, kind of gray for me. But and John, I got a call yesterday from Dane Wigington, and he's going to be on the air with us tomorrow at 10. And we, like you and I, talk off the air, and other instructors and I talk off the air. I asked him, I said, Dane, I am feeling a sense of urgency where I am working until I collapse every day now on preparing for things I think may happen. There's not always tomorrow to get things done. So I'm working literally from the moment I get up until the time I collapse, 7 days a week here at the farm, getting things ready for climate change, energy disruptions, machine breakdowns, animal health, all the things that I need to pay attention to, I'm working on as fast as I can. And I asked him if he feels that same sense of urgency. And he said he did. And I asked the meetup group last week if they felt the same sense of urgency. And they said they did. John, it's happening all over. People feel that something's really, really, really wrong and bad things are coming our way. And they are now stepping up their preparations at the highest rate of preparation that they ever have. Finishing the things that they think are important rather than delaying and not paying attention to them. Are you seeing the same thing? Are you feeling the same thing? Or is it just others?
No, I think there's some of that going around, but there's still a lot of people out there that believe the hype that's coming through the mainstream media.
Yeah. Well, no, I agree. I agree that, and Dr. Shealy's number is the same as our number. 97% do not get it. But 3% of us do get it. And I think it's the same kind of thinking. I think, he uses the word conscientious behavior. And what he means is thinking, planning, organizing, preparing, and, for contingencies. And making sure you have what you need before you need it. Making sure you have the information you need. And thinking things through. And trying not to make mistakes. And not being careless. And being deliberate in our actions. And that's what he says, 97% of people are not doing. So there's only 3% of us, and that's exactly the same number I came up with as people who are survivalists at some level and who are prepared at some level. So here we have the meetups tonight, and we're going to talk about American nationals. And John, I also want to mention that tomorrow on Genesis Communications Network from 7 a.m., 7 in the morning, till 9 in the morning, Central Time. I've been invited to be on Dr. Lorraine Hurley's show, Uncommon Awareness. And she told me she wants to know who I am. I've been on her show before. She's been on mine. She wants to know who I am, what makes me tick, why I say what I say, and why I stay in so much trouble. So that's tomorrow, 7 to 9, on Dr. Lorraine Hurley's broadcast here on GCN. I wanted to talk about this today for just a couple minutes. It's important. Tick bites, T-I-C-K, bites. We have a neighbor who came over a couple days ago, and he's a farmer and he raises cows. And he was telling Mrs. Finelli the story about a friend of his who spent 28 days in the hospital as a result of a tick bite. Now, these ticks are a pain. And doctors in Springfield, Missouri are quick to tell you that we don't have Lyme's disease. You don't have to worry about that here in Missouri. It's absolutely false. There is Lyme's disease in Missouri. And there's tick fever in Missouri. And I was bitten by some very small ticks years ago. And they were the size of, if you just put a very light dot with a very, very sharp pencil on a piece of paper, that little tiny dot that you can hardly see was the size of the ticks that bit me. And what happened was I was coming from Missouri back to Virginia, driving the truck, and I walked through some grass, and some ticks got on my shoes and climbed my legs and bit me over the 11-hour drive. By the time I got to Virginia, I started feeling the symptoms. And, it was a Friday, and the doctor's office in town, this little town of 500 people where I lived, was closed. And the only thing I could do was go to the emergency room. Well, by Sunday, I had a fever of like 104, and it was pretty serious. Well, here's what happens. You can get from tick bites joint pains, chills, fever, fatigue, an aching neck, a stiff neck, tingling numbness in your limbs. You can have facial palsy or paralysis. You can have headaches, painful arthritis, swelling of the joints. You can have cardiac abnormalities. You can even get an abnormal pulse, a sore throat. Your vision can change. Of course, a fever. And it can result in disabling neurological disorders. Now, I know a woman who got Lyme's disease. And this woman was so impacted by this tick bite that she would get in her car and forget how to get home. I'm talking about a routine trip. Let's say it was the equivalent of going to the supermarket down the road. She would forget how to get home. She would forget how to drive her car. Those are instinctual things. You know? Who thinks about that? Just get in the car, you turn the key, you step on the brake, you start the vehicle, you put it in reverse or drive, and off you go. It's real simple. You know, it's just routine. Well, she forgot how. She would fall down the stairs. She's an athlete. It's not like, and she was like in her 30s. She was at the prime of health. So the reason I'm mentioning this is it's serious. Now, the next question is, what do you do about it? Well, that's why I'm mentioning it. In my case, at that time, back in the 90s, I didn't have the antibiotics at home. I had to be dispensed them by the system. Now, is that what you want? Do you want to have to wait like I did and almost die from not having amoxicillin or doxycycline? So maybe if you have the ability to get them for your pets and your pet doesn't need it, and you have it on standby, you might avoid some of the problems that the system will create for you. Now, you can get some of these antibiotics for your pets. You can get some of these antibiotics for your pets. It's the same stuff. For your fish, for your cat, for your dogs. Our dogs have antibiotics. Why wouldn't they? And so do our cows. Why wouldn't they? We'll be right back. John Ragan's with us, the Financial State of the Union.com, the Financial State of the Union.com. John Ragan, I was talking with my son many years ago. He was about 14 years old. And I asked him about royalty, what he thought royalty was. He looked at me and he said, "Oh, Dad, those are people who are willing to kill more people than anyone else is willing to kill. Royalty, willing to kill more people than anyone else is willing to kill." John Ragan, I think it's absolutely true. So, do you think royalty is collecting gold?
There's no doubt that those that are in power and in the know are collecting gold.
Mm-hmm. And why is that? Why don't we spend some time on that right now? What are your thoughts on gold? And you've shared them at the meetups, and let's share some of that right here. And let's talk about gold, and let's talk about many people don't consider it an investment. Many people consider it a hedge against inflation, and that's what I consider it. I consider it private. I consider it something that we don't need to tell people about specifically, that if we have it. But it seems to work. Even even special forces keep gold coins. At least those from the United Kingdom keep special forces, keep gold in their special forces attire, so that if they need to bribe their way out of a situation, they can use gold to do it. What are your thoughts on gold?
Gold and silver have always been money throughout history. And up until the 20th century, it was money here in the United States as well. But 1965, LBJ, while it didn't make it illegal, changing over to this fake coinage that we use today, caused the last of the silver to be taken out. And then they shut down the silver certificates. So we've been operating on pieces of paper backed by imagination ever since. Now,
when you talk, go ahead.
We're looking at a financial collapse coming up. These pieces of paper aren't going to be worth anything. And part of the equation, too, is how long will it take us to reach that collapse? Because the longer it takes to reach that collapse, the more valuable that gold becomes in preserving your wealth in the interim. The shorter the time frame, the less important it is, because the way I put it is, if you don't have your food and water preparation set up, you have no business having gold and silver, because you can't eat gold and silver. But in the meantime, if we are going through a period of 2 to 3, 4 years of increasing inflation, having that gold on hand can make the difference between you being able to pay your property taxes and being able to stay in your home, and being able to buy the food that is, we're already seeing double-digit inflation on that. Part of that's not inflation, part of that's lack of supply from the droughts. And gold is probably the best way to preserve the bulk of any wealth you do have.
Okay. Well, John, I was, as you were talking about it, I was looking around the studio, and I have some silver in here. I've got silver dollars, and I have some silver rounds, and what I do is, if someone has, if I'm invited to an event, and there are children involved, let's say I'm invited to someone's house, and I know that person, and I will bring their child a silver, 1 ounce round, and I'll give it to that person, and they'll say, "Wow, this is really neat. What is it?" And then I'll explain that it's silver, and their parents will say that, "That's really pretty cool. I think we just started a silver collection." And I think it's something that is memorable. It's something that can be used to barter, to use in a barter transaction. And it's pretty cool. And they keep, generally, over time, they seem to be worth more and more and more, only because the dollar is worth less and less and less, and it takes more and more dollars to buy the same amount of silver, generally, over time. Now, silver's gone up and down, and so has gold. But, John, if a person wants to buy an ounce of gold, well, look right now. An ounce of gold, spot price right this second is $1,252.80. So typically, if a person wanted to buy 1 ounce of that, they'd end up spending about $1,275 to $1,300 for 1 ounce. But it's not always practical to have that denomination, right?
Right. And I was looking at that this morning. Spot was $12.57, and if you wanted to buy a 1 ounce gold American Eagle, it would be $13.52, which is 7.5% difference between the spot and the real physical, metal. Mm-hmm. Now, those do come in different weights. You can get a half ounce, a quarter ounce, tenth of an ounce. And when you do that, it starts costing a little bit more per ounce. So by the time you get down to the 10th of an ounce, you're paying an extra 10% for that.
Okay, let's go smaller.
Well, smaller, that gets into something that we found on the internet called the carrot bar. And they produce these and embed them in a credit card size container, so it's easy to slip into your wallet. And those come in 1 gram, 2.5 gram, and 5 gram sizes. Now, especially here in America, we don't think about grams so much, but to do the translation, there's basically 31 grams in a troy ounce of gold. It's a little bit more than that, 31.1, but for a quick calculation, you just divide by 31. This starts bringing it into the realm of what we would use junk silver for. A silver dollar, if you hold it in your hand, it's a nice, heavy piece of coinage. And currently, those are going for roughly $20, just for the lesser quality silver dollars. If they're in good shape, there's other value assigned to that. But if you start putting 5 or 10 of those in your hand, that starts getting to be quite a bit of weight to carry around. Well, these 1 gram carat bars, the cost on them this morning was $43.48. Well, the cost on was $64.34, which would make the cost in relation to the ounce of gold basically a 48% premium. The 2.5 would be like a 30% premium. The 5 gram would be like a 16% premium. But we deal with this ordinarily in our lives anyway. You go to the grocery store, which I did yesterday. I looked at the 10-pound bag of sugar. That was $7.45. So just under 75 cents a pound. The 4-pound bag was $3.29. So if you just grab the 4-pound bag instead of the 10-pound bag, you're paying a 10% premium for getting the smaller package. Now, if you don't use a lot of sugar, you might just go for the 2-pound bag. The 2-pound bag is just $1.85, but now you're paying a 24% premium over the 10-pound bag. And maybe you really use even less than that, and it's got these sugar packets. Well, there was a box of 100 sugar packets, 12.5 ounces of sugar, which is a little over 3/4 of a pound. And when you look at that, the premium on that over the 10-pound bag of sugar is 293%. So comparing that to the premium on the 1 gram carat bar at 48%, it's a bargain.
John, you bring real life examples to the broadcast classroom. I just love it when you do that, because it's the perfect example. 293% cost increase, sugar packets over the 10-pound bag. So, all right, makes sense. I mean, to make things smaller, to divide things into smaller and smaller packages, the cost per each goes up. It just does. On everything. Because there's more labor involved. You take that 1 ounce of silver, instead of making a 1 ounce coin or 1 ounce round out of it, you're making 31. little ingots out of it. And each one has to be put in a plastic laminate and so forth. So, okay, so what is your take on carrot bars? Karatbars. What's your take on that?
It's definitely...
Tell us when you come back?
Sure.
Tell us what your take on... Okay, we'll talk about it when we come back. Carrot bars. John Ragan, I'm Vin Finelli. This is USAPrepares.com. John, you did it this time. You really did. 2001 millisecond delay. I think that's a record. That over 2 seconds, just over 2 seconds delay. Now, I just checked during the break. Silver dollars, if you want to buy culls, you can pick them up for about $28. You can get culls for it, maybe even a little less. If you want nicer ones, let me just give it just 1 second here. Culls are, $27.99. If you want nicer silver dollars, you're going to spend $31 and more. And what is your opinion of these carrot bars? These very small ingots, if you will, of certified quad 9 gold. What's your thought on that?
Well, just look at the comparison there. Like I say, a silver dollar is pretty heavy. And I'm going to have to find something in real life that's a gram. There's 453 grams in a pound.
Right.
Our minds just can't do that kind of division. Mm-hmm. So it weighs almost nothing. So that 1 gram is the equivalent of, say, 1.5 to 2 silver dollars. So you could literally have, 4 or 5 of those in your wallet and hardly notice they're there. Whereas if you had 10 silver dollars in your pocket, you'd notice the weight and they'd be making a lot of noise.
Okay, so are you pro carrot bars or con carrot bars? Karatbars.
I'm pro carrot bars if you want to have something of real money to be able to use to barter with.
Okay. John, you sent me a link, and I posted it on the website this morning. And if you'd like to learn more information about carrot bars, you can go to John Ragan's website, the news tab, and there's a post about carrot bars. Or we go to USAPrepares.com, page 1. There's a post about gold, and top post, and you can click on that. It'll take you right to his website, and you can sign up under John Ragan and buy carrot bars, or just sign up for free and start building your gold business, and get revenue from it. If you want, it's increasing at an increasing rate. This thing is catching on, and I've signed up. John signed up. Aaron Dakins has signed up. Genesis Communications Network is behind it also. So if you think it makes sense for you, just go to USAPrepares.com, click on the post. It'll take you to John Ragan's website, and you can sign up right under him right now. No cost to sign up, and there's lots of ways you can participate. John, we've got Deborah Brewster. Deborah Brewster's on with us. Deborah, you're on. We've got just a very short amount of time.
Hi, just real quickly, I just wanted to comment. Back when the country was initially founded, as I had mentioned when I did that conversation on the waterways, most cities were also built near salt mines where they could, quarry for the salt, because back not all that many years ago, salt actually traded for the same price as gold. So, FYI, if we should all of a sudden have an event such, let's say, as an EMP or a total collapse, I would imagine it'd be more like an EMP where we're taken back, in the time clock. I think that salt could become, once again, a very valuable commodity as well. That's about it. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Have a good day.
Hey, thanks a lot, Deborah. John?
Yes, I remember the meetup when I told everybody, if you don't have a ton of salt, you're not a prepper.
I remember you doing that, and a number of individuals did go out and buy salt. Not quite a ton, probably not even close, but they did probably pick up 20 extra pounds of salt.
But especially if you're planning on having large animals to take care of, you need that kind of quantity of salt to make it through.
Yeah, I have about a half a ton, literally. But we've got a lot of cows that eat a lot of salt, and they absolutely require it. John Ragan, thanks so much for being with us. And if you're interested in the carrot bar discussion, just go to usaprepares.com, page 1, and it says gold for real-life purchases. Gold size for real-life purchases, John Ragan. And click on that, and it'll take you right to the link to find out more about carrot bars. John Ragan, thanks so much for being with us, class. Tonight, meet up Ziggy, Sunshine, and Glenstone, 5:30, Springfield, Missouri. It's free. You're all welcome. Unless, of course, you're a politician. Above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you.